Warning: the following episode contains elements of horror that may be unsuitable for listeners under the age of 13. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, we've been expecting you. I'm Brianna, and welcome to Beyond the Bazaar's 13 Nights of Frights. From October 19th through October 31st, Halloween night, we will be sharing with you some of our favorite hand-picked urban legends, lore, stories, and more that we love to talk about during this special time of year. So take a seat, make yourself comfortable for these 13 nights of terror. Hey everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Bazaar. It's our 8th night of our 13 Nights of Frights. I'm Brianna, your host, and as I stated on yesterday's episode about the Wendigo, I'm going to be sharing with you one of my favorite rituals, light as a feather, stiff as a board. So, for those of you who are not familiar with light as a feather, stiff as a board, the objective of the ritual is to levitate a friend. It's been a popular sleepover game since probably the dawn of time since it was created. Not literally, but you guys know what I mean. It's been around for a long time. The earliest known reference of the game, light as a feather, stiff as a board, dates back to the early 17th century. Per a diary entry from the Royal Navy Administrator, eventually Member of Parliament, Samuel Pepys, on July 31st, 1665, Pepys recounted a story that was told to him by a friend. The friend, by the name of Mr. Brisbane, had claimed to have witnessed several children playing a game while in France. He described how the children, by the use of only a single finger each, appeared to levitate a young boy higher than their heads. While levitating or raising the boy, the children used a chant. In English, the chant went as follows: "Here is a dead boy, stiff as a stick, cold as marble, light as a spirit. Lift yourself in the name of Jesus Christ." These kids were on what we call X Games mode. I'm sorry I had to do that, but they were on a whole other level out here. And the version that was described by Pepys in his diary entry is actually really close to the version of light as a feather, stiff as a board that has been played for centuries up to today. And albeit the game has been kind of broken down and debunked by science, there's still something compelling about the ritual that draws us to it. I guess it's just the possibility of what if. With that being said, let's get into how to play light as a feather, stiff as a board. Step 1. Gather the players. In order for the game to be the most successful, a group of 5 to 6 people works best. But there's no set rules. More people can join if you like. Select your playing space. For the ritual to be successful, you'll need to find a quiet, dark room with lots of floor space. Other than that, no other supplies are needed. Although, if you want to, you can choose to get some blankets or pillows, as well as some small sources of light, such as flashlights, lanterns, candles. whatever you want to use. This is also why Light as a Feather is a popular sleepover game. Step 2. Prepare your playing space. Close the curtains or block any windows so no light bleeds in from the outside. If you need to move or rearrange the furniture, just make sure the floor is clear. Dim the lights, or if you decided to use candles or lanterns or whatever you're using, light them. Just make sure you turn off the rest of the lights in the room completely. If you're using pillows or blankets, you can lay them down on the floor now. Step 3. Choose one player to be the levitator. Have that player lay down on their back on the floor, or if you're using pillows, on top of the pillows or blankets. Have them close their eyes and cross their arms across their chest. The levitator should relax as much as possible, but should not move from the position that they are in. They should not open their eyes, and they should not speak until the game is done. Also, during this step, choose one player to be the guide. This player will direct the actions that everyone should follow. The remaining players, along with the guide, they are the lifters. The lifters and the guide should sit around the levitator and be spaced at regular intervals. For example, if there are 5 players performing the guide and lifter functions, there should be a lifter at one of each of the levitator's shoulders and knees, and the guide be at the levitator's head. If there are more than 5 players, space them out as evenly as you can, with the guide at the levitator's head. Step 4. Have all the lifters and the guide take their index finger and their middle fingers of both of their hands and slide it underneath the levitator's body. Then, on the guide signal, have the lifters attempt to lift the levitator into the air using only these fingers. Now keep in mind, this attempt will fail. You should expect it to fail. Failure at this stage is, of course, unavoidable. When this attempt has finished, all the lifters and the guide should leave their fingers tucked beneath the levitator's body. Once again, the levitator should not move nor speak. Now, the game truly begins. Step 5. At this point, the guide should begin the chant. She's looking ill. The guide should repeat this phrase softly, over and over again. The remaining lifters should pick up the chant, speaking the words along with the guide. She is looking ill. She is looking ill. She is looking ill. When the guide feels that it's reached the right time, they should change the chant. She's getting worse. The lifters must listen carefully as they chant. When the guide changes the words, they must change the words too. She's getting worse. She's getting worse. She's getting worse. Then the chant must change again. But this time, she is dying. Again, the lifters must listen carefully and follow the guide. She is dying. She is dying. She is dying. And once more, the chant must change. This time, it's final. She's dead. When the lifters hear the guide shift, they too should change the chant. She is dead. She is dead. She is dead. Step 6. The guide and the lifters should fall silent. The guide should then begin a new chant. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. The lifters, once again, must also repeat the chant, softly and continuously. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. As the guide and lifters chant, the guide should indicate that it is time to lift the levitator. As you're lifting, do not cease chanting. Do not lose focus. Chant and lift. Nothing else matters. Chant and lift, and watch the levitator rise. Step 7. The guide should indicate to the lifters when to lower the levitator. Once again, do not cease chanting. Keep speaking the words, light as a feather, stiff as a board. Slowly and steadily, bring the levitator back down. When the levitator has been returned back to the ground, the guide and lifters should allow themselves to fall silent again. At the guide signal, all lifters should remove their fingers from beneath the levitator's body. If you have any candles, extinguish them. Open the curtains. Turn on the lights. The levitator may now open their eyes. They may now move. They may now speak. But keep in mind, they may never be the same again. Now for the game Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board, it can be played at any time. However, it has been the most successful being played at night, which is why it's a popular sleepover game. And also considering that you kind of need for it to be dark, well, I'm not going to say you kind of, it's required for it to be dark within the room. It'll probably be easier for you to do that once it's nightfall. Also, during the chanting sequence, you may use whatever pronoun is appropriate for the levitator, whichever way they identify, he, she, they, whatever. In the telling of the ritual, we used she, but it's not explicit to female or those who identify as female. There is another darker version of Light as a Feather, whereas in step 5, the guide must speak as if it's delivering a eulogy for the levitator. They must describe, in as much detail as possible, how the levitator is meant to have died. So at the conclusion of the story, they should begin then chanting Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board, and then move on to step 6. It is said that after playing the game, you should pay close attention to the levitator's behavior in the days following. If they begin to behave in a way that's unlike them, they may not be who you think they are. They may be someone completely different or something completely different. I love the game ritual Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board, because for the simple fact that it is a classic, it's something that we've all played. I have played it. I know a lot of rituals I share. I said I wouldn't take part in, but I did do Light as a Feather. Nothing eventful happened except for just having fun with friends. When we tried it, I was one of the lifters. And I do remember us feeling like we did kind of get her off the ground, but for the sake of the podcast, I'm going to say that we did. Even though as I got older, I kind of debunked it, saying that, okay, maybe we just thought we did because we were just so hype from playing the game. But in retrospect, I mean, it's possible that we could have, but it was just really fun and thrilling to be able to play it. So that's how Light as a Feather made it into our 13 Nights of Frights, just for being a favorite of mine. And actually, for the longest time, I forgot about Light as a Feather until I watched the popular Hulu show. It got canceled, but anyway, I watched that, and that's when I was like, oh my goodness, I forgot all about Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board. And when I watched it, it's kind of a dark turn on the game, but it's really, really good show. If you haven't watched it already, you totally should. So the show kind of follows the darker version of Light as a Feather, where the guide gives the eulogy of the person. So the girls, when they play the game, the guy kind of tells how they would have died for each one, and then in reality they each start experiencing and or dying from the way that they were predicted to die in the game. So they kind of try to go against the clock to beat the curse and prevent themselves from meeting a grisly end that was predicted during the game. So I would definitely, if you haven't already, like I said, check that out. And if you've never played Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board, then you're never too old to play, in my opinion. Actually, if it wasn't for quarantine and social distancing and all that stuff, I'll probably try to play it again, because it really is, just something that's cool. And like I said, even though it's been debunked by scientists and been debunked in the physics field, those fields live, to debunk things. But I believe, that there are some truths to things like this, and I do believe there may be a truth hidden within Light as a Feather that we just not made privy to. But like I said, I like to keep an open mind, as I said in the episode from yesterday about the Wendigo legend. We just like to keep an open mind with all things creepy and weird and ominous and all those type of things. And speaking of creepy, for tomorrow's episode of our 13 Nights of Frights, we're actually going to be sharing one of our favorite creepypastas with you guys. So come back tomorrow to hear that. And as always, stay bizarre.